member of the Information Society? That's a difficult question because I didn't know we were in the Information Society.
Hello, Mujeres. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Mujeres de Pilar. This is Pilar. I know that it has been a minute since I have released an episode, and that I have been silent for a while, and I apologize if I didn't release content sooner or if I didn't make a statement sooner. My silence was definitely with intention, and I'm here now, ready to be heard. And I hope that today's, episode, which is dedicated towards Black Lives Matter, I hope that it is educational. I hope it is informative. I hope it does justice to the Black community. And yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't release anything sooner. I felt, that my voice was not as important at the beginning of the uprising of Black Lives Matter. I didn't want to release any content that wasn't Black Lives Matter related. And for the people who have already recorded with me, Myra, specifically you, I apologize that I have put your episode on hold. But it was very important to me that whatever content I was releasing or sharing on social media needed to be Black Lives Matter related. And so I stood silent for, about a month. It's been a month and 4 days since George Floyd's death, mainly because I have just been trying to gather information, and I have just been trying to inform myself, educate myself, take some time to breathe, and really make sure that whatever I am going to release is going to benefit the Black community as well as educate my listeners. And so that is the reason for my silence. I apologize if anybody believes that I should have released something sooner. I believe as a new content creator, new podcaster, this was a very scary situation for me. Not because I'm scared of standing with Black Lives Matter, because I stand in full solidarity with Black Lives Matter movement, with the Black community, but because I wanted to make sure that whatever content I released was good content. And I understand that sometimes we have to release things and we learn from whatever it is that we release if we do it wrong, but I just really wanted to do justice. And so today's episode is dedicated to Black Lives Matter. It is mostly for the Latinx community, my listeners specifically, who happen to be non-Black Latinx individuals mainly. And I just really wanted to release some content I thought would be good for you as far as what my process has been like the last month and what resources you can reach out to educate yourself on the Black Lives Matter movement, to educate yourself on racism in our country specifically, but racism in general, and how to become non-racist and anti-racism. And so, this is a difficult episode as far as it's very saddening to me that it is 2020 and we still have to have this conversation. We still have to remind people that Black lives matter. But I will continue to remind people that Black lives matter for as many years as it takes till people understand. And I will continue to stand with the Black community until people understand. And for anybody that wants to come at me with all lives matter, that's fine. But in my mind and in my heart, Black lives matter right now. Black lives matter. Black lives are at risk. And so they are the community that I am focusing on. And that doesn't take away from me focusing on the Latinx community, who has also been oppressed. It does not take away from me focusing on, immigration. And it just actually, it raises the bar for me to become more informed on police brutality. It raises the bar for me to just become more educated on how I can be of assistance to my community, to the Black community, and it just raises the bar. And that was one of the first things I thought after George Floyd's death was, I need to educate myself more. I need to become more involved. I never want Mujeres de Pilar to just be a cute podcast. I want it to be informative. I want it to be educational. And how can Mujeres de Pilar contribute to the Black community? And I think I can contribute by giving some insight to my own community as to why we should stand with Black Lives Matter. So, this past month, originally after George Floyd's death, I was very, I believe, scared and emotional. People who are very close to me probably are very aware that I am easily saddened and pained by things going on in the world. And so I really wanted to be strong for the Black community. And I think that's another reason that I didn't release anything sooner, is because I wanted to stand very strong and to understand that the pain that I am feeling is probably minor compared to the pain that the Black community is feeling. I think that right now it is very important that we are putting ourselves in the Black community's shoes and understanding that this is an oppression that has been happening for generations, for years. And it is still going on. It is still very present. Police brutality is real. And so I really just had to stand back, right? And very early on, I got involved with protesting because protesting is very comfortable for me. And it is how I show my allyship. It is how I show solidarity, by going out and protesting. And today we are going to talk about some other ways that we can be in solidarity with the Black community if protesting is not an option for you. Whether it be that you are not able-bodied, or maybe that you are not a citizen. How can you get involved if protesting is something that is putting you at risk? So protesting for me is very natural, and it's something that I got involved in right away. And so at these protests, when showing up to the protests, I actually went alone to 2 of the protests. And the first protest for me, I prayed the whole way to downtown LA. And not because I was scared to stand next to my Black brothers and sisters, but because I was scared of what the police would do. I had been seeing a lot of things on media, and actually social media has been very important during this movement of Black Lives Matter. I want to remind everybody that everything you see on the news is not reality. It is not real. It is it's portrayed in a way where sometimes the story is only one-sided. And so social media has been so important because we are seeing different perspectives of what protests look like, of what, the riots and looting look like. And I understand that some of my listeners might not agree with the riots and the looting. And I just want to be a voice of empathy and compassion, that, if you are somebody who has not felt oppression, if you are somebody who has lived a very privileged life, you may be living a very privileged life and not even realize it. It really, this whole movement has just encouraged me to remind people that we have to put ourselves in other people's shoes. And I know that a lot of you might not agree with me, and that's okay. I just want to be heard. And I think that as far as the looting and rioting goes, for me, it was very easy. I wasn't offended by the looting. I wasn't offended by the rioting. I believe that the looting and the rioting was the cries of the people. It was a way to let everybody know that this cannot go on any longer. It was anger, it was pain, and While some people might not understand it, for me, it was very clear why it was happening. And so, of course, yes, I feel for people who were losing their businesses. I saw a lot of, small businesses not be touched, and maybe some small businesses were touched. And in Minneapolis, actually, they had a organization that was raising money to help rebuild the small businesses after the rioting and the looting. And so I think the looting and the rioting was more geared towards capitalism. It was a cry. And so that's a conversation. That's a whole conversation, probably, a different episode. But so going to the protest, back to the beginning, was a little nerve-wracking for me, as far as like, I didn't know what the police would be like. I didn't know how violent or aggressive they would be, but I did not feel in full solidarity until I got myself down to downtown LA, until I walked with my brothers and sisters. And so actually the protest that I joined was originally led by a Black church, and so it ended up being crazy numbers because I believe all kinds of different organizations went out that day. And so it was such a different experience for protesting, because I've gone to many protests, and it was a very different experience for me because I understood that I was there to be in solidarity with my Black brothers and sisters, but it was not necessarily my voice that was going to be running things. I wasn't going to be beginning chants. I wasn't going to be making calls and saying things. I was there to listen. I was there to support, and I was there to really just back up Black voices and make sure that they were being heard. And so, going to this protest was different. It was also different because I had never attended a protest by myself. And so being out there on the streets, we started our protest with a prayer, a beautiful prayer. And I was out there for maybe like 5 hours. And we were outside of City Hall. We were outside of the police department, and we walked throughout the city, and I never saw any violence. I didn't see people being disrespectful. And it really just made my heart so happy because I know what everybody was seeing on the media, and I know that my family and friends were scared for me to go out by myself, but it was just so important to me to be there to see it firsthand. And I knew that there was a chance that it could get violent, that it could, go to a different level of protesting and become rioting, but I was ready to take it. And so I did. I went out, and it was beautiful, and there was singing, and there were stories being told, and it just really puts you in a different perspective. And so if protesting is a way that you want to get involved, you guys can feel free to reach out to me. I actually, going to a protest alone I do not encourage it. It was just a choice that I made in the moment because I just really knew that I needed to be out there, and there was nobody who was able to join me. And so, I don't recommend going to a protest alone. I recommend being very safe and going with somebody that you trust. So yeah, anyways, the second protest that I went to was with a friend, and we were also in downtown LA, and this was led by the Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. And we went in front of Justice of the Peace, and they actually meet every Wednesday. So anybody who's willing to go on a Wednesday, I believe it usually starts around 3 p.m. You can go out to Justice of the Peace in downtown LA. Feel free to contact me, and you can join me. And basically, it is family members of victims who have not received justice telling their stories, talking about their children, talking about their loved ones, and just spitting all kinds of knowledge and it is so important. I think that's, anybody who's willing to get involved, please come out, listen to these stories, and just put yourself in a position where you are listening. In today's times, it is so easy for us to feel like our voices need to be heard and that we need to talk, but sometimes listening is the motivation that we need. And so that is the second protest that I went to. And if you guys would like to join, it's every Wednesday. So it's been going on for years. I believe since 2016. Don't quote me, but I believe it's been going on since 2016. It is now 2020. Okay. And every Wednesday at 3 p.m., this community meets. And so please contact me if you would like to get involved, and I can, or if not, going with me, I can send you the information that you need so you can go out there and bring a friend. And it is so easy to go one Wednesday and not show up the next Wednesday and never show up again and just talk about it. But I think it's important that people continue to show up on Wednesdays, continue to fight for justice for these lives that have been taken. And so that is another protest. And then I also went to the Pride protest in Hollywood, which was a big controversy. I was going and then I wasn't going. I do believe it's important that when getting involved in a protest, that it should be, especially for Black Lives Matter, that it should be Black led and organized. You want to make sure that you're showing up to a protest for the right reasons. You want to make sure that the people who you are joining are fighting for the right reasons, the right causes. And so the Pride protest was a controversy in the beginning, and I still ended up showing up when it got switched over and it began to be organized by the LGBTQIA community members who are involved in the Pride organization. And so I went out to that one also alone, and it was so beautiful. It was just protesting on a different level. And for that protest, what our statement was all Black Lives Matter, meaning trans Black Lives Matter, gay Black Lives Matter, lesbian Black Lives Matter, all Black Lives Matter. And so it was just a different level of the movement, not forgetting our LGBTQIA Black community. And so those are the 3 protests that I've participated in so far. I plan on participating in more. So if anybody knows of any protests or vigils or gatherings that I could go to, I'd appreciate your information as well. And I will continue to share the information that I receive via my personal Instagram or Mujeres de Pilar. This isn't a one-time thing, guys. So that's just a little bit about protesting. I'm sorry. I know I knew that this episode would be a little scattered because my emotions are scattered. But I want to get back. So how can we be an ally with the Black community during this time? How can we stand in solidarity? And so, like I said, solidarity for me means going out physically, protesting, talking, speaking. But there are other ways that we can be in solidarity with the Black community. And so some content creators, directors, and, podcasters that I gear towards are obviously, I always talk about them, the Locatoras and Cat Lazo. And I haven't spoken about Cat Lazo on my podcast yet, but I was introduced to Cat Lazo by the Locatoras. So I will be putting all their information in the description so that you can look these ladies up. They are Latinx community podcasters and creators. And so they are just people who I admire and look up to, and who have really just been spitting a lot of information. And I've been gaining a lot of information from them, how I can be in solidarity. And so there are some episodes specifically that I think that you guys could tune into. And even though it's been a couple of weeks since these episodes have been released, I think, it's not too late. If you haven't gotten your hands involved, in this movement, it's not too late. It's actually perfect timing, because after a certain amount of days or a certain amount of weeks, things start to die down. And the last thing that we want is for Black Lives Matter to die down. We want it to continue to roar. And so you can follow Cat Lazo at It's Cat Lazo. And what she does is an unpacking and some of the unpackings that really just gave me a lot of information were unpacking of non-Black Latinx solidarity for Black lives and unpacking of the police. And I have been able to gain a lot of information from these episodes. And so with her unpacking, she does have another content creator and director, Guadalupe Ambrosio, also known by Lupe to the Latinx community. She joins Kat Lazo, and they just give us all this information that I believe would be beneficial to you guys. And for the unpacking of the police, Kat has Jem, who on Instagram goes by You're Doing Great, who is an abolitionist, a propagandist, and a viral TikToker, somebody else that you guys can follow and listen to. And like I said, I'll be putting all their information in the description, but these are people who I turned to get some information from. I'm going to be listing some books that I have ordered to read, or some books that I have already invested in by Black authors, writers, poets, so that you guys can have some Black content to, refer back to. And I think that that's another way that we can stand in solidarity with the Black community, is really just allowing Black people to have space in our lives, in our homes, supporting small Black businesses, Black owned businesses, having conversations with our family, friends, and coworkers. That's a huge one. And I'm going to go a little bit more into detail with that. If you're not somebody who wants to get invested in protesting, or it's just not safe for you, how can you be of help? There were so many people handing out water bottles. There were people who were handing out snacks. There were people who were handing out masks, and they were handing out sanitizer, and they were putting sunscreen on people, spraying sunscreen, not rubbing it on, but spraying some sunscreen on people. You can maybe act as a way of transportation to and from the protests. If you don't feel comfortable, that could help people, instead of having to dig into their pockets and pay for Ubers or Lyft to get to the protest. You can be somebody who drops your friends off, because we know how crazy it is to get down to LA and have to come back. You can be somebody who pays for people's metros. That's something that I never thought of, that I learned on the unpacking with Kat Lazo and Lupe, paying for their metro, paying for their bus rides. You could cook food, hand out food to the community. You can invest in childcare. There's so many ways that we can stand in solidarity and support the Black Lives Matter cause. And so I'm getting all riled up, guys, and excited. So I want to go back to having conversations with our family and friends and coworkers. So this is, before I even start that, I just want to start by saying that I have been very fortunate in my lifetime to be very privileged. I'm privileged in the sense that I have two parents. I'm privileged in the sense that, some people think of it as a privilege, but that I have two parents that are married, which is a privilege, because I have both of them in my home. I am privileged by the color of my skin. Those of you who know who I am or what I look like, my proximity to whiteness is very real. And even though I have not ever been, I don't think that white people have ever confused me for being white. I do believe that they know that I'm not white. The lightness of my skin has been a privilege, and I'm aware of that. And I think that before having conversations with family and friends and coworkers, that is something that we have to accept and that we have to recognize. Recognizing your privilege from the beginning is so important. And being from the Latinx culture, the Chicanx culture, it's easy to think that we don't have privilege because our people have been oppressed as well. but the proximity to whiteness is real. And the lighter that your skin is, the closer you are to being white, the more privilege that you receive. And for some people, that's very uncomfortable to hear, but it is the truth. And besides having, light skin, I also am from, like I've mentioned before in other episodes, I'm at least 5th generation, American. And that in itself is a privilege. And so I think recognizing our privilege and understanding that there is a responsibility that comes with this privilege is so important. And it's not something that I take for granted. It's not something that I take lightly. I take it with a grain of salt and a lot of responsibility, that it is my job to step up. It is my job to step up for Black Latinx. It is my job to step up for the Black community. And for anybody else who is being, oppressed because they don't have that privilege. It's my responsibility. And so, with that being said, I do believe that I grew up in a household that encouraged me to love everyone. My parents, I can't give them, I'm getting emotional. I can't give them enough credit. I think that they did a great job instilling love in my heart and making me understand that I should treat everybody the same. Now, growing up, something that was said to me, and I was corrected by a Black girlfriend, and I am so happy that she corrected me, but I wasn't corrected until, my early 20s. But anyways, growing up in my house, something that was said was you don't see people's color. You love people for who they are. And I think that the message was genuine. I don't think that it was from a place of trying to be hurtful, but I think what my parents were just trying to let me know was don't judge people because of the color of their skin. But that wasn't always how it was worded. It was more so you don't see color. So flash forward to years later, having a conversation with a girlfriend who is Black. I had made that comment, being a younger girl, I wasn't supposed to see color. My parents, taught me to treat everybody equal. And, she paused and she was just no, but I want you to see my color. And obviously we see color. You get to a certain age in life, and even as a little child, I can't remember, but I'm sure that you see color. And that's what she said. I want you to see my color because I love being Black and I want you to love me for being Black. And I was just whoa, why have I been seeing it this way all of these years, And it was never to not see her or any other Black people. It was never because I didn't want to see them for their color. I thought that I was doing something right by saying oh, I don't see color. I treat everybody equal. Well, no. She wanted me to see the color of her skin and love her regardless. And that's really what I was doing anyways. But I learned something in that moment, and hopefully that can put some light bulbs in your head. So anyways, I believe I was raised in a home that encouraged me to treat people equal. And even thinking back to my grandma, I've had Black friends my whole life, and they have always been welcomed into our home. And so I never really saw the racism that was in our Chicanx household. And so this is where things become uncomfortable, right? So growing up, I started to look back on things that were said to me, not specifically from my parents, not even things that actually happened to me directly, but that happened to other family members who got involved in a relationship with Black men. And this isn't because I want to exploit my family, but this is because I want to really put things into a different perspective. I want people to realize that racism exists and it exists in Latinx households, and how can we get better? So I had family members who wanted to be involved in relationship with Black men or even Black women, actually. And it wasn't as welcomed. It wasn't as okay. And so that's a form of racism, And, I do want to give, credit to my family for beginning to think forward during their times, accepting Black people into our homes, allowing us to have Black friends, because I know some people who are, the same generation as me, and they weren't allowed to have Black friends, and I was, But when it really got into the family, and now you're bringing somebody into the home, it's uncomfortable. It's not okay. And so I think back to that, and I'm like, okay, I'll remember having a conversation with my grandma, my Nana Cecilia, and asking her, I believe we were watching something, it might have been like a documentary on the civil rights movement. And I remember asking her, like, well, what were you doing during the civil rights movement? Like, what were, Latinos doing during the civil rights movement? And she was just like, we didn't get too involved because we didn't see it as our problem. We were scared. We were scared that if we got involved, what would happen to us? And I remember her telling me that was something that she regretted. And I think that my grandma knew at a very young age that I was going to grow up to be very outspoken and full of ideas and a heart that was just full of loving people. And I think that when I asked her that question, I do think that she was saddened that she hadn't gotten more invested. But I believe during their time, it was just not the thing to do. So that's why for me in 2020, it is so important for me to stand with my Black brothers and sisters, because I think back to, like, if I was alive during the civil rights movement, what would I have done? What I would have wanted to be standing next to my Black brothers and sisters. And now I have the opportunity to, and I am going to. And so I think, I think about it as my grandma opened the door to the Black community to, eat at our table, to be friends with her family members. And maybe they weren't always okay with the idea that one of their children may have married outside of our race. And I shouldn't even just say that it's only Blacks, because it could have been any other race and they might not have been okay with it. But they were okay with us having friends that were different races. And my parents, my mom and dad, brought a different level of trying to knock down, racism and trying to be anti-racist. And my mom exposed me to Black culture at a very young age. And my mom worked, with the city of Phoenix, and through the city of Phoenix, she was able to work with the Black community. And she exposed me to, different people who have really shaped my life. And somebody I think of specifically who I met through my mom's job in the city of Phoenix is Rod Ambrose. And Rod Ambrose is such an important man to me, because not only did he expose me to, Black culture, but he also exposed me to theater. And, I think I was maybe like 11 or 12 when I was in my first play production where I had to actually show up to rehearsals, and I was, involved in something more serious. And we performed this play at the Carver Museum in Phoenix, in downtown Phoenix, and it was a civil rights movement play. Now, I had learned about the civil rights in school, but what I was learning through Rod Ambrose was things that I had never heard. I was seeing images and video clips and watching history in a way that I had never experienced it, and I was experiencing it next to Black people. So I was able to feel their pain, and so, my mom, I love that she had this job with the city of Phoenix because it also introduced me to, Dee Dee Woods. And my mom's job allowed me to meet women like Fatima and Nikki Lee, Cynthia Peters, and Sue Cox. Those are just a few names of some of the individuals that I've been able to meet who allowed me to be included in Black spaces at a very young age. I was probably like 4 years old when my mom was working with these people, and I've known them my whole life, and unfortunately some of them are not with us anymore, but with some of them being, second mothers to me. And I know that that's a privilege that not everybody gets to experience. And these individuals have shaped me. I really give credit to my mom for putting me in spaces that weren't just Latinx spaces. For really exposing me to culture that wasn't my own culture. And so the Black Lives Matter movement sits very deep in my heart because I have had the privilege to be next to Black people who have really just shaped my life. And in high school, having groups of friends who were Black really shaping my life. And so it was just very important to me. And it's very important to me that my listeners understand that through the generations, my grandma took one step. She took one step by allowing us to be friends with people of any race. And my mom took a deeper step in involving us in cultures that weren't just our own culture, not just Latinx culture, but all cultures, and really exposing us to different people and understanding that the differences that we shared shouldn't separate us, but they should bring us together so we could learn about each other. And now it is my turn. It is my time to really physically be involved. It is my time to physically be invested in this movement and to stand as an ally. And I will make sure that my children are able to be invested as well on another level. And so I take it with a lot of responsibility, and that's why, because I have a place in my heart, a big place in my heart for the Black community. And I understand that that's not everybody's experience. I understand that has not been everybody's teaching or upbringing. And I just want to shed light upon you guys to understand why this movement is so important, and to please not be so quick to judge people for their actions when you have not felt their pain. And to really consider being an ally and to stand in solidarity with the Black community, because I promise that this is something to not discredit. This is something to, like in my grandma's words, this is our problem. This is our issue. If we are living in a world, in a country that we are supposed to be free, and our Black brothers and sisters cannot be free and they cannot be comfortable, even though they played such a significant role in building this country, I have a problem with that. And so, I just really want to encourage you guys. So now, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm taking y'all like on a roller coaster right now, I'm sure. But having conversations. So having conversations with your family and friends and your coworkers. And this could be about anything. It doesn't have to necessarily be about how to get involved in the movement, but it could be hearing something that is racist and saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we should change our language. Maybe we shouldn't talk like that. How can we be anti-racist? And, it starts, I really do believe language is so important, which is why I love words. I love speaking. And so I think, how can we be anti-racist? Well, that's a big thing. What are you saying in your household? What are your children hearing? Somebody made a comment to me and was like, we just need like this whole generation of, white supremacists to just, once they pass away, it's gonna be gone. And I'm like, no, it's not gonna be gone, because what do you think they're teaching their children? What do you think those babies are hearing in their household? Racism is taught. And so it's not going to just be gone. But how can we change it? Well, we can change it now, because sometimes in Latinx homes and the community, we allow space for white supremacy to happen because we're scared, because we don't feel like it's our fight. But no, we need to end it. And how can we end it? And we need to understand that racism was never gone. And right now, unfortunately, we are living through a time where we have a leader who has allowed white supremacists and racism to feel comfortable. It was never gone. It is just that we have a leader now who is allowing space for those people to feel comfortable to be racist. And that's not okay. We need them to know that this is not a place where racism is accepted, where it is not okay. And we are not going to deal with it anymore. So having conversations in the household are very important. Teaching our parents and our grandparents that, you know, we are in different times. They don't need to be so scared anymore. And we have to stand up, because when you don't stand up, well, then yes, you do begin to live in fear, because you allow these things that are not okay to continue to happen or to get worse. And so having conversations with family, having conversations with friends, having conversations with coworkers is so important, and having conversations with our children. What are we teaching our babies? What are we teaching? What are they hearing from our voices? You know, something that you can do as a parent. And I know that I'm not a parent, so some parents don't like to get advice from people who aren't parents. But I was involved in the education system. And I think that something that we can do is create a library that is diverse in culture for our children. Don't, have a library at home that is only Latinx. If you are Latinx, no, involve Black authors, involve Black books, share movies and history with them. That is not that is only their culture. That is one way that we can start. The language that you are speaking is infectious to babies' ears. What they hear is what they say. Be cautious of what you're saying. Really stand back and think about, like, I was about to say that, and that could be me being racist. And no, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to contribute to that. And then, speaking up. And this is like a scary one, I believe, for some people. It's very natural for me, but I think it's very scary for some people. Speaking up when you see that somebody is being treated badly. If you are in a space and somebody is mistreating a Black person, speak up. Don't allow it. Don't make that person comfortable to do so. People do things like that when they feel comfortable. Well, we need to shake them up and make them feel uncomfortable. And so speak up when you see somebody being mistreated, and really think about what you would want somebody to do for you. Be human. How would you want somebody to stand up for you if somebody was mistreating you? And maybe it's that nobody has ever stood up for you and nobody's ever done it for you, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it for other people. And so, also create safe space for our Black community, for their voices to be heard. And I think right now, something that's important, I'm going to be closing up soon. And I'm sorry if today felt like a rant, because it kind of is a rant. And I promise to be more organized and professional in other episodes, because this isn't something that's going to end. I actually plan on doing more episodes as I continue to learn about how to be in solidarity and an ally with the Black community. I'm going to include my listeners so that you can learn as well if you want to. So something I think we need to be mindful of right now, especially at the very beginning, but even now, is being very mindful of what we're sharing. I think sometimes when people don't have words to use, we use social media like sharing. We use sharing, like we share videos, we share pictures, we share quotes, we share, whatever it is that we're on Instagram, like we share it with our followers. And that's even something that I was taking part in. But I think it's very important to be cautious of what you are sharing. Some of the graphics, the images or the videos or the words can be triggers for specifically the Black community right now. And also just people who are, very sensitive to seeing violent images, it can be a trigger for them. So I think that it is important, if you are going to share anything that is graphic, putting like a warning before, that way people can choose to see it or not see it at all. That's something that I've learned, because it's not something that I was thinking about originally. It's something you could learn. And also, don't put stress and extra work and taking time away from your Black friends right now. You know, if your Black friends want to be a part of something that you are creating, or they want to, you know, share something on your platform, they're gonna let you know, one. And two, you know, I just think it's important, like, as far as like learning, pick up a book. You know, there are so many resources on the internet, and obviously be cautious of what resources you're getting, but pick up a book, look on some websites, learn about the history of slavery, learn about, you know, racism in this country. You can do that. The resources are at your fingertips. It's literally about you wanting to take the time. I don't recommend reaching out to your Black friends and saying, hey, what do you think I should read? How can I be helpful? What protests should I go to? You know, I think it's important for you to look up the protests, you to figure them out. It's important. And I mean, if you want to join them because you already know that they're a part of one, or you want to inform, like, hey, this one is going on, I'm going to be there, do you want to go together? I think that that's one thing. But like, hey, where should I go? What should I do? Don't do that. I think it's really important that you take the time to look into it yourself. You know, our Black brothers and sisters are mourning right now, and they are organizing right now, and you are like not their focus, and that is okay, you know. But that's why it's so important for me that I become a resource for you, because I understand how hard it is to look up information, because you don't know if you're looking up the right information. Are you sharing the right information? So I really do plan on becoming a better resource for my listeners and people who want to get involved in this movement. You know, and I just think that those are some things that you should remember. And also, what can we do is we can give money. All right. If you are financially stable, to give money. And I understand what it feels like to not be financially stable sometimes. But I want us to think about the things that we do spend money on. We spend money on coffee. We spend money on eating out. We spend money on unnecessary buying on, you know, Amazon or whatever websites it is that you're buying from. And that's something else, is we should start looking at what organizations are we purchasing from. You know, are they for the cause? And so, but giving money, looking into organizations that you can give your money to that will be in, you know, benefit with Black Lives Matter or the Black community. Or if you have a heart for children, how can we help, you know, the Black youth, and what organizations can you give to? So I will be listing in my description, and I will also be making a video that goes through different organizations that I have found. Feel free to share them in, you know, the comment section. Feel free to send them to me directly so we can look into, you know, giving. And one that I want to talk about specifically, which I heard about on Locatora Radio, is so there is a lady, Danielle Elizabeth Stevens, and she is actually an organizer for We Still Gotta Eat. All right, We Still Gotta Eat. That is going to be the website. It's a Linktree website, and it's actually in for Mujeres de Pilar Instagram. It's actually in my bio, so you can go ahead and click on there, and you can become a patron, or you can through Patreon, which means that you will be giving a certain amount monthly, and you can choose your amount. I think like you could give like as low as $5 a month, and $5 is like what, one coffee. So or you could give more, which would be amazing if you are in the position to be able to give more. So basically what Danielle is creating right now is a space to feed the Black community. And so We Still Gotta Eat is the movement that she's initiated. And it is just basically about providing fresh, high vibration, chef-made, local, mostly organic meals and foods for free to Black residents in Los Angeles. And this is just individuals, this is families and children. And then I found out about Danielle through Locatora Radio, and I just went onto her Instagram, which is Danielle Elizabeth Stevens, and I just became obsessed with her and in love with her, because I really do believe like the best form of showing people that you love them is feeding them. I don't feed people very often, sorry guys, but it's because I'm not like that great of a cook. But she is using her talent to feed the Black community right now. And it is very true that in Black community and Latin communities, you know, our resources as far as like healthy organic food are very limited. And as far as being able to financially provide, sometimes I'm sure that we know a lot of people or have been in the positions where we cannot, you know, provide for ourselves and eat food that is good for us. So she is trying to create a space where these Black families, children, individuals can go and have a healthy meal. And so you can go onto her Patreon and you can become a patron, or you could even give if you just, you know, you don't want to dedicate to doing it monthly. You can give through, I believe, Venmo, PayPal, and I think it's Cash App. And so right now I am really invested in just getting her story told and really just sharing this organization, We Still Gotta Eat, with everybody, because I would love to see more mujeres becoming patrons or just giving. And so if you do become a patron, I would love to see your letter that says congratulations, you are now a patron of. I would love to have that letter so that I can post it and encourage other people to become patrons as well. That is just one organization that you can give to. I'm going to be listing a few others, and I also think that also I'm going to be posting some Black businesses. I'm going to be posting books, I talked about that, and Black content that you can go to. And then I'm also going to be posting some organizations that are looking for volunteers. I will be researching into some protest or visuals or that are happening soon, so that you guys can see that. And so, like I said, this isn't something that's going to end now. It is just something that I wanted to put out there. I wanted my listeners to have an opportunity to know where I stand, why I stand, with Black Lives Matter, why Black Lives Matter is important to me and not just all lives matter. And that is because Black lives are at risk right now. And so I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to become allies with the Black community or to stand in solidarity. And I know that it's very scary. Imagine if it's scary for you, how scary it is for the Black community right now. And I just wanted to give you guys a chance, to get involved. And the conversation is going to continue to be on Mujeres de Pilar. So if it does make you feel uncomfortable, or if it isn't something that you are okay with, then I would just recommend not listening, which is really hard for me to say, right? Because I really want to continue to have your support, but I need you guys to know how important Black Lives Matter means to me. And I also want to just share that, be strong and firm with your family members when you're talking about Black Lives Matter, and when you are trying to talk about how to be anti-racist, when you're talking about police brutality, and when you're talking about, defunding the police. I understand that these are all things that maybe our family members don't understand, and it's because we're in a time where this is what we're used to. We're used to the police because we've had the police for as long as we've been around. It doesn't mean that policing is the only way to get results. It's just that people can't imagine anything else. So please don't be so quick. And I also learned this from Kat Lazo. Don't be so quick to erase people from your lives. and she says it perfect. And I really hope that you guys go to her page and you guys go look at the unpackings that she does. And don't be so quick to erase people from your lives because we are not Black. You know, I am not being directly affected when somebody tells me that they don't want to defund the police, that looting is wrong. I am not being directly affected because I am not a Black person. When people are talking negative about Black Lives Matter, I am not directly being affected because I am not Black. Now, I can get offended and I can be upset about it, but what I have to remember is that being in solidarity with the Black community means that I'm going to take a little bit of hit sometimes, and I'm going to be okay with it, and I'm not going to give up on these people who are not thinking with a, I don't know how to say it without being, disrespectful, but who are not, being open-minded. I'm not going to just delete them. I'm going to continue to have the conversation. I am going to continue to invest in them with the hope that they are going to learn something. It's a lot of unlearning, guys, and it's a lot of just, breaking down these normalizations that we've lived with our whole life. And we have to understand that the older generations are not going to break down as easy. Some of our friends and family are just not going to agree with us, and that is okay. But it is not okay for us to delete them from our life, because what does deleting them from our life do? Nothing. It just means that they're not a problem for me anymore, but they're still a problem in the world. So it's not for me to delete them. Now, if my Black friends and, Black brothers and sisters want to delete somebody who's being like that, that is okay, because they are directly being affected. And I think the way that Kat puts it is just perfect. And I'm going to leave her page and the link, her name on the description so you guys can follow her. But it's, for instance, if I'm not gay, but if I was gay and I have a family member who is gay bashing, okay, I can delete that person because they are directly messing with my energy. They are directly affecting me. But because I'm not Black, I don't get to just delete people. I need to continue to encourage them because somebody says that they believe in the police force, or because somebody says that they are with the police. And even though I believe in defunding the police and I am not okay with the police right now, it doesn't mean that I get to delete them. I have to continue to educate myself and give knowledge to myself and share that knowledge with my family and friends, because that is part of my allyship, being a non-Black person. And so, yeah, guys, I feel like this might have been a rough episode as far as me being probably all over the place, no matter how much time I've taken to educate myself and try to organize this episode. I feel like it's probably still a little crazy. It's probably been a heavy episode for you guys because I think you're a little bit more used to maybe my bubbly personality. And this is something that I take very serious, so it's hard for me to just be bubbly. And it's a lot of information. And I know that in the very beginning of the uprising of Black Lives Matter, I took some time where I just wasn't on social media at all. I slept, a lot afterwards. After the protesting, my head was filled. I was crying every single night. Because I was just imagining the pain that my brothers and sisters are feeling in the Black community. And so it's hard to unlearn some of these things that we've just grown accustomed to. It's hard to put ourselves in other people's shoes. And this is something that isn't going away, guys. So it's really, I just want you guys to know, I do think it's important that as Latinx community, Chicanx community, that we get involved, that we get our hands a little bit dirtier, that we have these uncomfortable conversations, and maybe even have uncomfortable conversation with yourself and evaluate yourself and the things that you're saying and the things that you're doing and your actions, and who are you surrounding yourself with, and what books are you reading, and how are you excluding Black people from your homes. I just think it's important that we evaluate ourselves. And so, feel free on Mujeres de Pilar on Instagram to message me if you have questions. And yeah, we're going to continue to grow as a community. Mujeres de Pilar is now a community that I am very invested in, y'all. I've been invested since day one. And so I want to create a space where we can learn safely, where we can feel free to just express ourselves and break down these, barriers that have kept us one-sided for so long. And so with that being said, y'all know now that Mujeres de Pilar stands in solidarity, if you didn't know before, with the Black community. And we are taking and making a promise to continue to grow as allies, to educate ourselves, and to love our Black brothers and sisters, and to be strong for them, because it's very crazy for us to believe that they always need to be strong, and to create a space where they can feel comfortable. And so thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your guys' time. I hope that this was educational, informative, and I hope that it did justice. And on our next episode of Mujeres de Pilar, we are actually going to be having Maya Blake, who has been my best friend for probably 13 years now, I think. And she actually just recently started her own business, Shanti Chaos. And so Maya is going to be on to talk about her new business. And I am so excited to, one, be able to sit down with my best friend and have conversation and just love on this new opportunity that she is taking. And, just for you guys to be able to hear from her. And I think that Maya, being a Black woman, is going to be able to give you guys information about supporting Black-owned businesses. And, like I said earlier, we don't always want to turn to our Black friends and sisters to educate us, but Maya let me know that she wanted to. And so I think that this is just a great opportunity that has been presented for us to be able to sit down and hear about her business and hear about her life, and to allow her to have space to speak on Mujeres de Pilar. And so I am very excited. Her episode is actually going to be attached with this episode. So right after listening to me, y'all can tune in to the next episode of Mujeres de Pilar featuring Maya Blake. I love you guys.